Hello, everyone. This is Theodore Shoebat. Hope you guys have had an amazing day, and I hope you guys will have an amazing Thanksgiving. And I'm here to give you guys a message that you will not hear at church. I guarantee that. Today, my father wrote a very interesting article exposing the evils of Boris Johnson, how Boris Johnson is a eugenist, how Boris Johnson believes that the Oriental race has larger brains than everyone else, how blacks have smaller brains, how white people are kind of sort of in the middle. My father also exposed how Boris Johnson essentially called for the English people and the British people in general to really convert to Islam, essentially convert to Islam, saying, oh, participate in the fast of Ramadan, break the fast at your local mosque, calling for people to convert to Islam. He's doing Muslim altar calls. And it really is interesting that Boris Johnson is now calling for the EU to allow Turkey to join the European Union. And this is the guy who was pushing for Brexit. This is the guy who was saying that Great Britain should leave the EU because if it does not, these Muslim immigrants are going to take over everything. They're going to kill everyone. They're going to rape all of our women. And it is going to be utterly disastrous. We are heading towards a great catastrophe if we do not sever Great Britain from the EU. That's not how he talks. He has more of a kind of like, hey, mate, this is preposterous. Actually, no, he doesn't have that either. English accents are interesting because they vary from area to area. But anyway, Boris Johnson is really playing both sides. He's playing with that whole counter-jihad movement. He's in that whole movement of, we got to get rid of the immigrants, block the borders, build the wall, break ties with the EU, because if we don't, immigrants are going to take over, etc., etc. And at the same time, he's playing with the, well, I shouldn't say playing, but he's actually working with the Muslims. He's advocating for Islam. He's an agent for Islam. And he's saying, like I said, participate in Ramadan, integrate Turkey into the EU, all of that stuff. So what is really happening? Is Boris Johnson a double agent? Or is the counter-jihad movement representing what Boris Johnson is doing? Is the counter-jihad movement playing the same game as Boris Johnson? And I think it's really the latter of the two. I think the counter-jihad movement is evil. Am I saying Islam is good? No, Islam is evil. Because the Catholic Church has been fighting Islam from Islam's creation. But the counter-jihad movement, really, in and of itself, is evil. Because, and I was seeing this from the beginning, from 9/11. It really begins with 9/11. With 9/11, you have the invasion of Iraq. With the invasion of Iraq, you have the death of Saddam. With the death of Saddam, you have ISIS. With ISIS, you have the refugee problem. With the refugee problem, you have the crisis going on in the EU, and therefore you have the fragmentation of the EU. With the fragmentation of the EU, you have ultranationalism. The ultranationalism of 1914. The ultranationalism that sparked the Great War, the Great World War, that extended into a Second World War in the 1930s and 40s. That really was all started because of the ultranationalism of Germany, and that ultranationalism really goes back to the Protestant Reformation, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit here. And so the EU was really created to contain that ultra-nationalism, right? So with the fragmentation of the EU will come the revival of that ultra-nationalism, and you're asking at that point for a very, very dangerous combination. So when my father was writing it, and I was doing some of the research for the article, me and him went back and forth, as we always do. And we were discussing, why is Boris Johnson asking for Turkey to join the EU? I'm not really asking, but he's asking the EU to allow Turkey to join the EU. Why is he doing this? What is the motivation? What is the agenda? And it just clicked on me, just like that, what the agenda really is. And I told him, I told my father, I think I got it. Boris Johnson wants Turkey to join the EU because with Turkey being a member of the EU, you have an unrestrained right bestowed upon Turkey to further flood Europe with Muslims. And this time they will not be immigrants. These Turkish Muslims will be Europeans. They will be members of the EU. And Turkey will have every right to inundate Europe with Muslims, with more Muslims. So instead of just having 2 million Muslim immigrants coming in to Europe, you will have millions more coming in from Turkey. And Turkey will be used really as this conduit to bring in more and more Muslims. Because before, Turkey was using Germany. And Germany was wholeheartedly cooperating with Turkey to fulfill this agenda of bringing in Muslims into the EU with the purpose of fragmenting the European Union. So Boris Johnson, let's not forget. Now you say, well, how do you know this, Theodore? Well, Boris Johnson, let's not forget. At one point he said, if we don't sever from the EU, these Muslims are going to ruin our country. So all the people got up and they voted for Brexit, right? Because the number one reason why people voted for Brexit was immigration. It was the immigration crisis. The supposed immigration crisis, as they call it. So with the immigration situation, with the alerting of the immigration situation, with the alerting on the immigration situation, people voted for Brexit. And essentially they voted for the fragmentation of the EU, right? Because Brexit is really the first step. It's the first fragmentation. It's the first step of breaking away from the EU. And if Turkey joins, guess what's going to happen? The counter-jihad movement and all those a part of it and all the politicians who are part of the counter-jihad movement, Geert Wilders, the National Front, AFD, they will go full throttle with the anti-immigration agenda and therefore with the anti-EU agenda, the Eurosceptic agenda as they call it. So by getting Turkey to join the EU, it will really boost the momentum towards breaking the EU. It will boost the momentum towards destabilization of the EU. It will accelerate the breaking down of the EU. And this all will happen, really, by sublating Turkey. Now, I think it's going to happen anyway. But by putting Turkey into the EU, it'll make that process a whole lot quicker. It'll be really a catalyst towards fragmentation and destabilization, which is what I think the eugenists want. And Boris Johnson, or I should say Boris Ali, is truly a eugenist, like I said. Oriental people have larger brains and so forth and so on and all that. So on and so forth. I reversed it. Anyway, so that's what we have concluded, that's why Boris wants Turkey to join the EU, because that will really further destroy the EU. It'll break it down. And by breaking it down, you have ultranationalism. With ultranationalism, you will have war. These people want to see the world burn. Now, an English friend of mine who has been following me for years, Mr. Timothy, thank you very much, Timothy, for sending me this. He sent me a video. And this video really served as another piece to the puzzle that we are trying to put together. And here is the video. And it was uploaded onto YouTube on June 12th of 2016. And as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, my goodness, am I seeing what I am seeing? Am I hearing what I am hearing? Now just watch the video and I'll give you my commentary and you will see what I'm talking about here. Here we go.
Never forget, for about 1,000 years, this place wasn't on the perimeter.
So here's Boris Johnson in Turkey. He's in Istanbul, which is really Constantinople. But after the Muslims invaded it in 1453, they changed the name to Istanbul, and now it is officially a Muslim city. But here he is in Istanbul, former Constantinople, and he's talking about why we should allow Turkey to join the EU. Now, watch until the end what he says. It's only a little bit over a minute, so it's not that long. Just watch what he says over the end, near the end. And if you don't see it, then don't worry, I'll tell you what he's trying to say anyway.
Of Europe, this was the center of European civilization. Whilst the rest of us were going through the Dark Ages, this was the place where the candle of faith, hope, scholarship, and learning was kept alive.
And now keep in mind, he's talking about how this city was the center of intellectualism. It was the center for scholarship, for research, for scholarly work, philosophy, literature, art, all that. And he is right. But that was when the city was Christian. Now it's Muslim, and he's not really making that distinction. Boris is being deceptive here. He's not making that distinction. So let's play on.
Of course, 1453 represented a profound change in this city. Istanbul is now a Muslim town. But what do we say if we perpetually keep Turkey out of the European Union just because it's Muslim? First of all, it's a denial of the huge achievements of men like Kemal Ataturk, who created a secular, westernizing country that just happens to be populated by Muslims. It sends out the worst possible signal to moderates in the Islamic world, saying that we can't incorporate such a country into Europe. And thirdly, are we really saying about ourselves and about Europe that it must be forever coterminous with nothing but Christendom? Well, try going to Bradford.
Hear that right there. Should we identify Europe with nothing else but Christendom? Well, for one, Europe is no longer Christendom. Christendom died out with the Protestant Reformation. Well, it began to die with the Protestant Reformation, and then it fully died with the Enlightenment period. So it's no longer really Christendom. Some people call it Christendom, but that's really only a figurative application of the word. It's really just a secular continent. It's a secular, I mean, Europe right now is nothing but a secular trade zone, trade union. That's really what it is. But nonetheless, read between the lines. You have to read between the lines. And I think that one of the things that distinguish observers of society with everyone else is that observers of society read between the lines. So we have to really read between the lines here. Why is he making this distinction? Like, oh, this dichotomy, you know, like, oh, if we don't integrate Turkey into the EU, then we're just Christian xenophobes, or, you know, we shouldn't just identify Europe with Christendom. What's he really trying to say? He hates Christendom. This person hates Christendom. Boris Johnson, you know, he really fooled you guys with his blonde hair. You guys thought he was English. You guys thought he was this good old Englishman, and he just fooled you with his blonde hair and his European looks, and you all thought that he was European and he was in favor for Europe and the patriot and all that. He really fooled you with that. But the reality is that this guy hates Christendom, and he wants really to see the inundation of Islam in Europe. He wants to see that fragmentation of the EU, that chaos, all that disarray and hysteria. He wants to see this great torrent of violence and blood on the streets. That way, it's a power thing. That way, when you have all that chaos, you can take power. You can lead your nation into absolutism, into despotism. And with the fragmentation of the EU, like I've said, it will lead to fanatic nationalism, and you will see the rise of fanatic nationalism in Germany. You will see the fanatic rise of nationalism in other countries as well. And you will see really the alliance between Turkey and Germany turn from just being a friendly alliance or to a general alliance, from a general alliance to a despotic alliance, an axis of evil. So listen to more of what this Orientalist has to say.
And saying that.
Look at that creepy music.
And when that great moment comes, and the two halves of the Roman Empire, East and West, are at last reunited in an expanded European Union, then the territory of Turkey will be rejoining a union that certainly has pretensions to restore that grand old Roman unity.
My goodness, when I heard this, I thought, has anyone else observed what I have just seen and heard? With the two halves of the Roman Empire coming back together. And this unity will allow a pretension towards the Roman Empire. And it just clicked on me. Thank you, Timothy, for sending me this video. It just clicked on me. Just dawned on me. This man wants to see the revival of the Roman Empire. While claiming to be populist and for the people, all that socialist crap talk, for the people, for the British people, for British sovereignty, he at the same time is calling for a transition to a new form of globalism. You see, the populists, they always want you to think that they are against globalization. We are against globalism. And what they really mean is that they want you to be a part of a transition. They want to really bring in this transition from one part or one manner of globalism to a different form of globalism. So the form of globalism that they are warring against right now is the globalism of the EU, which is really a trade union that says, Germany, you can dominate us economically, just don't kill us. And they want to change from that to the globalization of nationalism, because a lot of people have this misconception that globalism and nationalism are part of this dichotomy, that they are contrary to each other. They are at war with each other, that there is a conflict between globalism and nationalism. And that may be true, or that may be what it seems, what it appears initially. But if you allow nationalism to thrive, fanatic, ultra-nationalism, I'm not talking about, saying the Pledge of Allegiance here. I'm talking about fanatic, violent, ultra-nationalism. If you allow it to thrive, it will always become globalization. It will always become globalism. If you look at, for example, the history of the Roman Empire, they built this city called Rome. What was it? The two brothers, Remulus and Romulus, I believe. They built the city of Rome. They took a bunch of women from a different city, and then they essentially took them as concubines, forced them into marriages, multiplied with them, had children. They eventually created this city called Rome. And from being a city of just being a city by itself, it eventually grew into an empire. And if you look at, for example, Genghis Khan, Genghis Khan, he united the Mongolian tribes together and made it one nation. And if you were alive then, and if we had YouTube and electricity in those days, then we would have thought, wow, Genghis Khan wants to make Mongolia great. He believes in uniting his country. He believes in strengthening his people. And we would have just perceived it as good old nationalism. But Genghis Khan would eventually create the greatest and largest empire in human history. It was the most expanding empire in human history. It expanded into more nations than any other empire. And that was globalism. And if you were alive then, you may have thought, well, oh, just a nice country called Mongolia. And then all of a sudden you find yourself as a colony of Mongolia. And now it's no longer just nationalism, it is globalism. The same thing can be said for Germany. Hitler, he just believes in his country and in strengthening his people, and he's just a good nationalist. And look, Time magazine just made him Man of the Year and all that. So most people would not have thought that Hitler was some great and horrific danger. But there were some people who said, yeah, he is dangerous, and those people were laughed at initially. And then it turned out that they were right, and then people began to listen to them. Because from just being nationalist, Germany became globalist. They wanted to conquer the world. The same thing could be said for Japan. I can give you numerous other examples, but let's just finish this off with Japan as our final example. Japan united as a country in the 19th century in what is called the Meiji era. And the Meiji era is an era in which the Japanese really put the position of the emperor back to its traditional place as the spiritual center of all Japanese people, and as the this kind of absolutist dictator who would rule, but at the same time he would rule in harmony with other branches of government. And it united all the Japanese clans together, and it unified the country. And people in those days may have thought, oh, wow, Japan is uniting into a country, and we can work with them. And that's exactly what the U.S. did. The U.S. wanted to work with the Meiji, and the U.S. actually played a huge role in the creation of the Meiji state in Japan, because the U.S. gave the Japanese technology. And of course, there were other Western countries who were working with Japan as well. And from that nationalism came globalism. Japan would eventually invade Korea with the help of the United States, of course. Japan would eventually invade China, and Japan would eventually invade large areas of Southeast Asia, and it became an empire that the United States had to fight and vanquish eventually. So I'm not really buying into this idea that, oh, once we have nationalism, then we'll just be to ourselves and we'll be friendly. That's never happened, and it never will happen until kingdom come. That's why I laugh at these alt-right people when they say, oh, we want a peaceful ethnic cleansing. You know, we want to have a homogenous ethnic state in which we will have just white people living in America, and then maybe we'll make a section of the U.S. for other races or just for blacks because they were slaves and they've been here since the beginning of this country and all that. And we're going to do everything peacefully. And it just never works that way. I mean, if you trust those people and you think, oh, they're just going to do things peacefully, I mean, at that point, don't be surprised just to be in front of a firing squad and with a bunch of people saying, yeah, we're going to peacefully, ethnically cleanse you with a bullet because it's painless. So nationalism will always go into globalism in some form or another. And what Boris Johnson, I think, wants is something greater than just the fragmentation of the EU. He wants the fragmentation of the EU so that particular countries will have absolutist power, right? But I think he knows that with the fragmentation of the EU will come the rise of Germany, because Germany is the ultranationalism of Germany is being contained within the EU. You break the EU off, what you have is an uncontained Germany. And then with Turkey in the EU, they will forge an alliance. They are already allies, but let's say that Turkey joins the EU, and that accelerates the fragmentation of the EU. What you will have are certain nations who will be loyal to Germany. Turkey is a given, and then you will have nations that will be adverse towards Germany. Great Britain, I believe, will be one of them. And so right there, you will have the formation of this demarcation between those who will be adverse towards Germany and those who will be part of the axis of evil. I believe you will have an axis of evil of Germany, Japan, and Turkey. Now, there is another subject that I want to get into, how nationalism will lead into globalism, how nationalism, the nationalism of the counter-jihad movement, which is simply really a group of eugenists, really. How these people are really leading other people into a form of globalization, how they are helping lead Europe into another form of globalization. I want to show you guys a video here of Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson is the head of the EDL, and there's a lot of interesting and disturbing things about Tommy Robinson. I mean, he gives out this persona of a hooligan patriot who's in the pub drinking a big old glass of ale, and he's with the boys, and he just cares for his people. But Tommy Robinson is part of an agenda that goes beyond that. In fact, it has nothing to do with that. It will use the image of the pub revolt for its own benefit, but it has really nothing to do with that, and it wants nothing to do with that. Tommy Robinson is part of a globalist agenda. Now, I have exposed Tommy Robinson before in an article, and here's the article. And I wrote it not too long ago, and I was basically in this article exposing the evils of the counter-jihad movement. And in this article, I talked about the rise of Germany, how and why Germany will arise again as a Fourth Reich, how it will be an enemy in the future. And I talked about how the counter-jihad movement in Europe is really pushing for this agenda. And I remember reading about this stuff, and I'm thinking, my God, people can't see it. They can't see it. I can see it, but a lot of people can't see this. They're using Islam as a way to get people to support Nazism. They're using the danger of Islam, the danger of jihad and all that stuff, to break Europe down, to cause chaos, to bring the world into utter hysteria and into a great storm and torrent of blood and war, to boost up Nazism, to cause a race war, to cause war within Europe, to make Europe worse than Syria. And this has been going on since 9/11. This has been going on since 9/11 because, as I've said before, it all begins with the CIA wanting to take down Saddam and wanting to take down all of these Middle Eastern dictators. You know, with 9/11, you had the takeover of Iraq. With the takeover of Iraq, you had the death of Saddam. With the death of Saddam, you had ISIS. With ISIS, you had the refugee crisis. With the refugee crisis, you had the fragmentation of the EU that we are seeing right now. And with the fragmentation of the EU, you have ultranationalism. And with ultranationalism, you have war. And it's all interconnected, the whole thing. And you may think, oh, the counter-jihad movement is all great and everything. Well, think the hell again. Because these people are evil and they are pushing the world into war. Let me show you guys an example of what I mean here. There was a meeting that took place, I believe, in 2015. And I've talked about this meeting several times. I've written on it. Very, very important because the meeting was not supposed to be known. And there was a conversation that was being held in this meeting that was not supposed to be heard by the public. And this meeting really revealed the true evil nature and intentions and agenda of the counter-jihad movement. And the meeting was not supposed to be known, and it leaked out. And the only reason why it leaked out was because one of the guys in the conversation, Jim Dawson, the founder of the counter-jihad organization Britain First, did not like what he was hearing. He saw it as evil. He said, "I cannot take part in this," and he revealed the conversation. Well, what Jim Dawson revealed was that in this conversation were Malcolm Pearson, who's a member of the British Parliament, Tommy Robinson of the EDL, Baroness Cox, and Alan Eiling of the Swedish Democrats. Of course, these are all part of the ultranationalist populist movements taking place in Europe right now, and these are all people who are in favor for the fragmentation of the EU. And another person in this conversation was Anna Marie Waters. And Anna Marie Waters is a lesbian member of UKIP. And that's one way that you can know if an organization is good or evil. What does it say about homosexuality? And people may think, oh, but the danger of Islam is so great that we have to tolerate that. No, that's bullcrap. Don't ever pay attention to that. That's that 5 minutes to midnight mentality. That's crap. Because don't forget what God did to Lot's wife. Just for looking at Sodom, turned her into a statue of salt, a pillar of salt. So once an organization says, oh, we have homosexuals and we love homosexuality, and they start giving this toleration crap, that's a sign right there. It's bad. It's evil. Stay the hell away from it. And so these are the guys that were in this meeting, and they were discussing how they were discussing this plan to use the Muslim problem to cause a war in Britain. Look at this guy. Look at Malcolm Pearson. I mean, that's a demon right there. He looks like some character you would see in Resident Evil. I mean, he's in the laboratory mixing bacteria to make some sort of a zombie creature. I mean, the guy looks so sick and evil. Tommy Robinson looks like a thug. Baroness Cox looks like a damn slug coming out of a shell. And Alan Eiling is a Nazi. And these people are sick, but they're all interconnected. Robert Spencer, Anna Marie Waters, all this stuff. Oh yeah, and Anna Marie Waters, she's the member of UKIP I was telling you about, and she was also in this meeting. So this is what Jim Dawson was talking about here. And he says, let's see. He talks about this meeting and what was discussed, and he says, as the meeting progressed, I was interested in how they would attract a following, given that the right-wing anti-Islam market was rather crowded, and Britain First had almost a monopoly on the scene. It was then the issue of cartoons. Was brought up. Anne Marie Waters outlined her idea of a Muhammad cartoon competition. It was also muted by the others that the displaying of cartoons would occur in towns and cities with large Muslim communities, both here in Britain and possibly in Europe. Robinson and Eiling both contributed to this discussion. So they were discussing how they were going to use a cartoon that was derogatory towards Muhammad and piss the Muslims off, do a cartoon event in a Muslim neighborhood, get Muslims to become very, very violent, and have people start to kill each other. And that is really revealing on what is going on, what is the evil intentions of the counter-jihad movement. And it really reveals something about UKIP. You know, here you have Boris Johnson, who was supporting Brexit. He was in with the whole UKIP crowd. I think he's a part of the Conservative Party, but nonetheless, he was working with the UKIP crowd. And here he is saying, let's bring Turkey into the EU. And then at the same time, he's saying, oh, the immigrants are going to kill us. Of course, there's an evil agenda behind it once you see that sort of contradiction. And then you have Anna Marie Waters of UKIP talking about starting a race war. You can read the whole thing. I'm not going to read the whole thing for you, but you can go to the article and read it. And you have Alan Eiling of the Swedish Democrats. You have Tommy Robinson saying the same exact thing. They want to start a war. They want to start a war. And they are promoting this ultranationalism. But again, that ultranationalism will only lead to globalization. Why? Because Germany will say, you guys broke away, you guys left us with this debt, screw you, we're going to punish you. Turkey, you are one of our allies, let's make a pact against these traitors. So here is a video of Tommy Robinson. This is another piece of the puzzle here that I want to show you guys, because there's one thing I want you guys to notice. Check this out. Very interesting. Right behind Tommy Robinson in this speech, and this speech was quite recent. I believe, well, the video was uploaded in February 6, 2016, so, yeah, 2016, so it happened this year. Now, let's watch this video. Right behind Tommy Robinson is not the flag of St. George. You know, you would think an ultranationalist like him, a good old hooligan, good old rugby boy. Yeah, mate, we're going to beat these cunts. That's right. Yeah, you would think a guy like that would be having the flag of St. George behind him. But no, behind him is a big-ass flag of Pakistan. Watch this.
First of all, some people
right there
back home in the media, they may look at a Pakistan flag flying in the background of our speech and ask why.
There it is. It's not the flag of St. George. It's not the cross of St. George that's behind them. It's not the cross of St. George waving behind him. It's the big fat ass flag of Pakistan. And that crescent moon on the flag is a pagan symbol. That's the image of Sin, the moon god. So he's got an image of Baal. He's got an image of Baal Peor, Molech, and Sin waving behind him. And he wants to tell us about ultranationalism. Go on, Mr. Robinson, or I should say Mr. Lenin. Go look up his real name. His real last name is Lenin. It's not Robinson.
Go on at a demonstration in England.
Look at that. Big, fat-ass flag of Pakistan. A despotic Sharia Islamic country. And he's waving it behind him. This is like someone saying, you know, I really, really hate Nazism, but I have the big old swastika waving behind me. It's the same damn thing. I really, really hate Islam. I'm against Islam. We got to stop it. You know, the Sharia people, they're throwing guys off buildings. I'm seeing, you know, immigrants, man, in my own country. Like, I feel like I'm not in my own country anymore. You know, man, right? I'm like not in my own country. And, like, I'm seeing these bearded men everywhere I go. You got women dressed up looking like they have freaking trash bags over their heads, and they're ruining our country. And I'm seeing the numbers of Muslims rise exponentially. And mate, we just have to vote for Brexit, or else these Muslims are going to kill us all. Oh, by the way, I got a big old flag of the crescent moon waving behind me because I'm just like that. And I love the green color. I love the white and green color. Let's listen to this guy. Come on, our hero.
The reason is because Bikini UK, we want to represent everyone. We want to represent everyone that resides in the UK that stands against hate. Everyone, regardless of race, regardless of colour, regardless of what country your heritage is from.
All right, fine. Let's unite together, regardless of race, regardless of where you come from, regardless of where your parents may have come from. All right, fine. Unity, great. Uniting the races in a country, great. But why do you have to put the flag of another country behind you? That's all I'm asking. Why isn't the flag of St. George behind you? Now, if he had the flag of St. George behind him, and then he said, listen, I don't care what your race is, I don't care where your parents came from, let's just all unite. then I wouldn't be even presenting this. I would not be even presenting this video to you guys. But he doesn't have that. He's got the flag of Pakistan waving behind him.
This man here, his name is Mohammed. He's of Pakistani heritage, which he's proud of. But he left his life.
See, so they bring a guy from Pakistan, or could be that his parents are from Pakistan. He was born in the UK. I don't know. But they bring a Pakistani guy over, and they say, "Oh, the reason why we have the flag is because Muhammad is with us." Really? That's the reason? I mean, is he the only non-Anglo guy in your crowd that you have to put that flag up there? You know, if someone were to bring my father to an event like this and say, we have here Waleed, and he's Palestinian, so we have the flag of Palestine waving, my father would be the first one to tell them, take that damn flag down and put the flag of St. George up there. Hoist the flag of St. George. Don't be hoisting this piece of crap Palestinian flag. And the fact that they're not doing that in this event tells me a lot. Tells me that these people have other motivations.
Islam. He left Islam.
Okay, he left Islam. Then why do you got to put that Muslim idol over there? I'm not buying it. I'm not buying this crap. And the fact that this guy was in a conversation talking about starting a war between English people and Muslims tells me everything. That this guy doesn't give a crap about England, because if he really cared about England, if he really cared, let me ask you this. Remember that story of a soldier who was beheaded in the street in England? And the picture went viral of the Muslim with the blood on his hands, and he had an axe, and he hacked this guy up, he murdered him, right? If it was up to Mr. Robinson here, there would be thousands of these soldiers beheaded on the streets, because that's exactly what this bastard wants. He wants more immigration into the UK. He wants blood on the streets. He wants more soldiers beheaded on the streets. That's exactly what this guy wants, because he wants to see the breaking down of Europe. He wants to see chaos. And what he is really doing is bringing us into another form of globalism, a much more dangerous form of globalism. I mean, we complain about the globalization that we are seeing today. No, what we are entering to right now is a much more dangerous form of globalization. It is globalization under a nationalist guise. And that is exactly what we saw, for example, in the 20th century with the rise of Ottomanism, Pan-Asianism in the Ottoman Empire, in which you had the Young Turks say, let's create this Ottoman identity, and if you do not conform to this Ottoman identity, then you are worthy of death. That's exactly what they did in the early 20th century. They told the Armenians, the Greeks, and the Assyrian people who were living within the Ottoman Empire to become Ottoman, to integrate into this new identity of Ottomanism. And they all refused, and 3 million of them were slaughtered. 3 million of them were slaughtered. So it's a much more dangerous form of globalization. It's a new form of globalization that says, we are this nation, let's say the nation of Germany or the nation of Japan or the nation of Turkey. We are this nation, we are this empire, and you are under our empire, and if you do not become nationalistic and patriotic for this universal empire, then you are worthy of death. And the fact that this bastard, this hooligan, this piece of trash, is having this demonic flag waving behind him, while at the same time wrapping himself up with this image of nationalism, tells me of what agenda he is. That he is of this agenda of this new globalization. The new globalization that is much more tyrannical and that will exhibit a much more brutal and violent form of despotism. In fact, it's the globalization that we are seeing now is going to be nothing in comparison to what we are going to be dealing with in the future, because of assholes like this. So let's fast forward it here. There's another part. Actually, no, my mistake. Anne-Marie Waters is not in this video, but let me show you another video here of Anne-Marie Waters in this same speech. Check this out. This dyke, this evil dyke. She's a dyke who hates the Catholic Church, by the way. hates the Catholic Church. Here she is talking. Here she is talking.
They never affect anything. It is you.
It is
us
you. It is us. It's the people. We are the people. Look at me. I'm a dyke. I'm a dyke slut who hates Islam. Take that, liberals. Yeah, I don't have to hear any more of this propaganda, this populist garbage. It's all this, I am with you, I am with you. And then when their fantasy is finally revealed, you find yourself in front of a damn firing squad. You find yourself in a war. You find yourself in chaos and violence. You know? And let me show you another video. And I want to show you guys this video because I want to demonstrate to you guys what I'm talking about here. How these evil people work in deceiving you. Here's a video of Anna Marie Waters. Now, this is the woman who was in that meeting I was telling you guys about, in which they were discussing how to do a race war. This woman wants a race war, right? She wants to see chaos in the streets. And here she is talking with Gad Saad. And Gad Saad is a Jewish guy from Lebanon. He's a Jewish Lebanese guy. And, you know, he's part of this whole movement. I don't think he is as evil as these other people, but he's part of the whole movement. You know, the same, you know, this whole I am here to see Ali, look at me, I hate Islam, I'm an atheist who loves fags, that movement. So, now, I want to play for you guys just a little bit of the video. I'm going to play you guys the beginning, fast forward to the middle, fast forward to the end. I want to show you guys that these people, they just say the same damn thing over and over again. Watch. It's the stoning and the whipping and the hijab, and that's all they know about Islam, right?
The Anne Marie Waters.
Watch.
There was a motion put forward.
Started off with a report on some of the organisations in the UK which people think are moderate. And, you know, in order to call them moderate, to my mind, you have to redefine the word moderate. And we do that a lot. You know, we can have 78%, for example, of British-born Muslims said that satirising Muhammad should be a criminal offence.
See, there you go. That's all they talk about, right? That's literally all these people talk about. They talk about what everyone else already knows. They don't give you any sort of in-depth information. You know, oh, they want to kill people for making a cartoon of Muhammad. I mean, listen, anyone who watches South Park knows that that is true. Who let the frickin' dogs out? Right? Let's fast forward to the middle here. Let's see if she says anything new. Right? Let's see any sort of intelligence from these people that you love so much. Oh, they're going to save Europe. The lesbian dyke is going to save us. Let's play the video, please. Let's play.
And they are grooming,
grooming,
gang raping, and
gang. We all know that. We all know they're raping and gang raping. Anyone who reads the news knows that.
Prostituting girls 12, 13, 14 years of age.
Yeah, like English people aren't doing the same thing to their own people, right? There's no pedophiles in England. There's no pedophiles from England going into Africa raping little African kids. Oh no, that's not happening. Oh no. We are the holy people. That's another thing that with populism. But nonetheless, my whole point is that they don't tell you anything in depth, right?
One estimate put it at as many, never to mention their ethnicity again, and was sent on a 2-day equality and diversity course.
Equality and diversity. And that's what we talk about. You know, the liberals want diversity. Diversity doesn't work. Multiculturalism doesn't work. That's all they talk about. And what they talk about is really a cover-up for what they want to do, right? What they say is simply a curtain to cover the ultimate agenda, and that is chaos. Now, one day I was walking with my father, and we were talking about why do these people always say the same thing, right? It's like, oh, they get stoned, they throw the fags off the roof, blah, blah, blah. That's all they ever say, right? They don't ever say anything in an in-depth form. They never get really in-depth on the subject. Everything they say is on the surface. Everything they say is in the know. Everything they say is stuff that everyone else already has knowledge of, right? The ISIS, beheading, blah, blah, blah. And it just dawned on me. It just dawned on me. Why do they always say the same things? Why do they always say things on the surface? Why don't they ever say things in an in-depth way? Why don't they ever go beyond just the stoning and the rapes and the this and this and that? Because that's all they know. Because they don't want to know anything else. In other words, they don't give a crap about the subject. See, look at me. I really care about the subject of fighting Islam, fighting heresy, to the point that I will study exhaustively on the history of Islam, where it comes from, what are the roots of Islam, theologically. And I will also go into other areas of study, let's say exposing the homosexual agenda, talking about neo-paganism, the alt-right. I'll study all these movements. Why? Because I really care about civilization. I really care about people. I care about humanity. And so I study these things in an in-depth way. Now, people who don't give a crap about a particular subject, but nonetheless want to use that particular subject to advance an agenda, will learn enough so that they can talk about it. This is how I know that this is true. Look at Joel Osteen. Perfect example. He talks about the Bible, but always at the surface. Go look at a Joel Osteen sermon. It's the same thing. God loves you. And he goes up there and this is your Bible, this is my Bible, I am what it says I am whatever, and God, He's your best friend, and God loves you just the way you are. And then he'll quote like a word of a verse or something, and then he'll just go on and on and on about his fluffy bullcrap theology. Now what is Joel Osteen doing in these sermons? He is advancing his own agenda, which is himself, right, making money. And at the same time, he doesn't give a crap about Christianity. And at the same time, he is using Christianity with the very little knowledge that he has on the subject of Christianity. So he takes some things about Christianity, really nothing. He just takes some semblance of Christianity, some words from the Bible here and there. He manipulates it. But what I'm trying to say is that he takes just enough of the Bible, just a little bit from the Bible, which is just enough for him to sell his crap. But why doesn't he ever go beyond? How come Joel Osteen never gets into an in-depth discussion on theology? How come Joel Osteen never gets into an in-depth discussion on the Holy Trinity? Answer, because he doesn't give a crap about Christianity. Right? He only will study Christianity just enough. He will learn some few things here and there on Christianity just so he can appear as Christian. So I believe this is the same case for these counter-jihad people. They learn about Islam, they learn some things about terrorism here and there, just so that they can make it seem like they really care about the subject, just so they can have something to talk about. Because if they really, really cared about fighting Islam, believe me, they would be studying Islam exhaustively. They will be studying that subject in an in-depth way, but they don't, because they don't care. Someone who doesn't care about a particular subject, but nonetheless wants to use it for as a political means, they will appear as though they care just by talking about it at the surface. Be careful with people who have a little bit of knowledge on a subject, and yet that subject is their bone of contention. That subject is their entire that entire subject is used to be the identity of their movement. Like, we're the anti-immigration organization. Be careful. It's like a cult. Cults pop up and they say things like, "Oh, we are the church that denies the humanity of Christ." It's like, what? That's or they say we are a church that just focuses on predestination. They take one thing and they just focus on it. Be very careful with any group that just focuses on one thing. All right, that's why I became Catholic, because the Catholic Church is universal. But nonetheless, that's my observation on these people. They learn just a little bit about Islam just so they can make it seem like they really care. That's why they repeat themselves all the time, right? They never go beyond the surface knowledge that they have, and that's my observation. It occurred to me today that maybe what the agenda is this. 9/11 happens. Let's create this false dichotomy. The liberals will say Islam is a religion of peace. The conservatives will say, no, it's not. It's not a religion of peace. It's bad. It's this and this. Then we'll get a bunch of atheist faggots and eugenists and social Darwinists to come out and say, oh, it's not a religion of peace. You liberals are wrong. And then we'll create this false dichotomy. We'll create this Hegelian dialectic like that. And then what will happen is is so many people will be saying Islam is not a religion of peace, and every atheist will start saying, and all these atheist superstars will start saying, and celebrities will start saying it, and then it becomes a general point of knowledge. Islam is not a religion of peace. But then we'll still have these liberals coming out saying, oh, it may be a religion of peace, and then the conservatives will come in and they'll just Surah 9 these people to death. Surah 9, Surah 9, Surah 9. And then what will happen is the situation with terrorism and all that will come to a point where people want someone to save them, right? People will want someone to save them, and then we'll get people like this and other politicians and all these populist types to rise up, and then people will say, oh, these people are going to save us. And once you get to that condition, once you get to that point where people look up to a political figure as a savior, then that is when they control you. Because they have your emotions. And that is when they can do anything to the point where most people will not even criticize them. Because they are the saviors, right? That's what Boris Johnson is. Oh, the immigrants, they're gonna ruin our lives. But let's work with the Muslim Turks. AFD comes in. Oh, we have to remove the immigrants. They are ruining our country. But let me tell you something. If the AFD takes power in Germany, or let's say AFD coalition with another party takes control of Germany, which I think that is an image that is the most likely to happen. You will have not necessarily the AFD unto itself taking all the power, but you will have a coalition between different parties, and they will be a populist, racialist party. If you have that situation in Germany, and they will win on the anti-immigrant card, they will win because they're the ones who are going to save us from the evil sand people and all that. Those very people will join the very entity that they claim to be against. They will join the very people that they claim to be against. Because the Fourth Reich that is coming will join with Turkey. Well, that's not true. They hate Islam. Well, you know what? Boris Johnson did the same crap. He played that anti-immigrant card, and at the same time, he's asking for an entire Muslim country, not just a Muslim country, the most powerful Muslim country in the world to join the EU. The AFD will do the same exact thing. They would do the same exact thing if they take power in Germany. You know how I know that? Otto von Bismarck. Otto von Bismarck is the great hero of the German race. He's the one who united all the German principalities together and made Germany a unified nation, I believe in the year 1871. So in the early 19th century, Otto von Bismarck united all the Germans together, right? So he's a national hero. Well, what was one of the first things that Germany did after it became a unified nation? It made an alliance with the Ottoman Empire. It made an alliance with the Ottoman Empire. And that fascination with the Ottoman Empire continued all the way on to Hitler. It continued on in the First World War. And it continues on till this day. As Margaret Thatcher herself said, Germany will be a force of destabilization in Europe. And that is exactly what is happening. In fact, that is the whole reason why they brought these immigrants in the first place. So that they can create heroes to the very problem that they created. There is no immigration crisis in Europe. I know I've been calling it an immigration crisis, but I've been just saying that in the sense of using the term that generally is known in the media, right? The immigration crisis. But I also said earlier in this video that it is the so-called immigration crisis, because there is no immigration crisis in Europe. It is an illusion. And all the violence that they have been causing, yes, violence has happened, but it has been allowed to happen to manipulate the society. Look at the Cologne rape spree that took place in Germany in the New Year's. The police allowed that to happen. And it's not like they didn't want to arrest the rapist. I'm sure they did. But they were restrained by the government. They were restrained from stopping these criminals. Why were they restrained? There is an evil agenda. There's a motivation behind it. It wasn't done for the cause of diversity, because let me tell you something, German politicians don't give a shit about diversity. They could give a rat's ass about compassion. Governments do not give a crap about compassion. At least most of them don't care. There are exceptions, don't get me wrong. So there is a sinister agenda here. And that is to create chaos. It is to foment problems. And this suspicion that I have had for a long time in regards to this immigration situation in Europe, I think is further confirmed by Boris Johnson. The fact that he was saying, oh, the immigrants are this, this, and that, and then at the same time wanting Turkey to join the EU. And look at what he said in that video. Look at what he said in that video. Let's bring East and West together. Let's bring the two legs of the Roman Empire together. Boris Johnson wants to unite Turkey with the EU because he wants to see a restoration of pagan Rome. He wants to see a restoration of pagan Rome. That is why, my friends, that is why he supports eugenics. That is why he says, oh, the Orientals have larger brains. Right? That's why he says the Orientals have larger brains. Europeans are superior to blacks in their intellects. Because he wants to see a sort of Pan-Asianism in a coalescence, in a convergence with Pan-Europeanism, essentially racialism, eugenics. Remember what happened in the early 20th century. You had this alliance with Germany and Turkey. Germany was promoting Pan-Germanism. Turkey was promoting Pan-Ottomanism or Pan-Asianism, this idea that the Asian race is superior. Germany went on to invade Belgium in order to invade France, and they went on to also start a war with Russia in the First World War. Why? Because they wanted to dominate the West, because they believed that the German race was superior to everyone else. The Ottoman Empire was invading all this territory because they believed that the Ottoman race was superior. And when they massacred 3 million Christians in the early 20th century, they did it because they believed that to massacre another race was an expression of racial superiority. And you had at that time this alliance between Germany and the Ottoman Empire. And they both had racialist ideologies. So as you had this alliance between Pan-Germanism and Pan-Ottomanism or Pan-Asianism in the past, you are going to see this in the future. When he says, oh, the revival of Rome, he does not mean Christian Rome, my friends. As he said in the video, he hates Christendom, right? He doesn't want to see this restoration of Christendom. He wants to see a restoration of pagan Rome. That's what he wants. And it's interesting that Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who's the leader of Turkey right now, wants to refurnish and clean up this old ancient temple of Zeus, which is a pagan temple. It has absolutely nothing to do with Islam. Why would a fundamentalist Muslim be interested in a pagan temple of Zeus? Ah, pagan Rome. It's about the restoration of pagan Rome. And that is what we are going to see. And all these white supremacists, they are utterly obsessed with this idea of restoring pagan Rome. Restoring pagan Rome. And I think that is the ultimate agenda. So be very careful when you see these counter-jihad types and they want to fight the immigrants. Be very, very careful what you are joining. Because I myself have fallen for figures like this. It's not like I just popped up out of nowhere and said, oh, don't listen to these people. No, I myself used to believe people like this. Used to believe these UKIP types and, oh, these Pegida types and this People's Party types. I used to believe them. And then I opened my eyes because I realized the truth. That they don't give a crap about you, and they have a globalist agenda. Why do you think Tommy Robinson has the flag of Pakistan? It's not about nationalism. It's about globalization. So, this is Theodore Shoebat. Hope you guys have enjoyed this message. Hope you guys have learned something from this message. We will be keeping you guys up to date as to what is happening geopolitically, internationally, and nationally. So keep your eyes open in the meantime. And God bless, and God be with us.